Hey, Conrad.
How you doing, Ben?
Hey, man, long time no see.
Yeah, what was it? October. So almost
Yeah.
6 months.
Yeah, we were out hanging out in Reno and
hmm
the Reno
We
Uke
met in
Fest.
Reno. Yeah,
That's the first time we met each other too, but
right,
that was a
right.
lot of fun.
Yeah.
You and me and Lenny and Neil
hmm
and
Viggy
Avery,
and Avery. Yeah,
Danny and Perry, and yeah, that was big fun. It was nice to
yeah,
meet you, and it was nice for me to like go and just be one of the gang at a festival rather than running the whole darn thing.
right. Give you a chance to. It
It's a
was a
little
little bit
more
less.
relaxing, a little more
Right.
relaxing. Well, we had talked, and I had talked to you about how we're trying to get. Uh, we have more and more interest in bass because so
hmm
many people picked it up during COVID
hmm
for something different to learn. And they've been playing now. That was started 5 years ago, believe it or
hmm
not. And now they're kind of looking, they've learned the basics, a lot of them are still working on that, but they're
hmm
kind of looking to move from there on up into the next steps.
hmm
And from what we had talked about there, it sounded like you had some good strategies
Yeah,
and ideas in that to get people moving along.
yeah. My whole thing is that I started off as a hobbyist. I did not go to music school, and now I'm playing professionally. So it's the way that I approach any type of theory. A lot of people kind of balk at the sight of theory. They see the circle of fifths
Right.
and they run the other direction. They see a couple of standard chords. It scares them. But if you learn the right tricks, it becomes a lot. Number one, a lot easier, and number two, you don't. That's the trick, is finding the right parts of theory that'll make you understand what is actually going on.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff you don't necessarily need at the start of your journey. And sometimes throughout your journey, it still might be optional later on down the road. But if we give you a couple little secrets and get you into that idea of, oh, I also want to understand what's going on rather than following a chart and saying, oh, I'm just going to play a G, I'm going to play a C, I'm going to play a D. Um, but understanding why those chords work together, how you can connect those two. It's like, oh, I happen to see all those three chords together every time in songs.
Yeah.
So getting those little hints of theory that make you understand how a lot of Western music is constructed makes things so much easier.
Well, and once you understand that, you can go from the key of G to the key of C or D
Right.
or A or whatever. You'll
Transposing
know those
becomes easier.
relationships.
Yeah. So
Sure.
I approach it from a non-music school trained person.
Okay. Well, that's the way pretty much all of us have. So,
Yeah.
so that'll be real relatable. So tell me a little bit about yourself. I mean, like I said, I just met you in October and
Right.
we had a good time hanging out, but I know I've watched your Facebook page and you're playing all these different things. And I mean, how'd you get started playing bass?
How'd I get started playing bass? That would be in college. My first instrument was actually accordion, back in third grade, third and
Wow.
fourth grade. I only lasted about a year and a half. I still have it. And then went to piano for about another 2 years. So my parents weren't strict enough on me to keep practicing. So
Yeah,
they let me kind of fall off. So by seventh grade, I had quit. In senior year of high school, I picked up a guitar. Um,
sure.
and started playing that. And then in college, I picked up an electric bass. I had a roommate that played guitar, so it's just like, hey, why don't we learn to play bass too, and we can both do this. So my first two bands in college, I actually played bass. One was called Warthog. It was a
Warthog.
weird mix. I was just kind of pulled on later, and these guys loved everything, mainly punk and classic rock. So we would go from the Ramones into Jimi Hendrix, back into the Sex Pistols, and
Yeah.
it yeah, it didn't last long. And then I played with a friend in college radio, who was a songwriter and was bass for that for a little while. Then let's see, pretty much just played in my house as a hobbyist for the next close to 20 years.
Huh.
Um, Played a little bit. I did the corporate route. Played in the what is it, the work bands. The office put together a band for the Christmas party
Oh
every
yeah,
year.
sure, sure,
Uh,
sure.
so I did that for two different companies, but I was on guitar for those. Um, so funnier story is now we're getting to the point where I was married to my first wife, and she would not let me get an upright bass. She said, "No, it takes up too much room. I don't want you to have one." Like, great. That's why she was my first wife.
I was gonna say.
And I had gotten into swing music and traditional jazz and loved the upright bass and wanted to play that. And but I had a Toyota Corolla at the time, a 1999 Toyota
Okay.
Corolla. And I'm like, there's no way I can do that until you look on YouTube and you find a video that says how to fit an upright bass in a Corolla.
There's a video for everything, you
There's a
know.
video for everything. So I went out and I bought an upright bass, and that was about 15 years ago. So then it was a matter of relearning. It took a couple of years before I was already gigging doing the traditional jazz stuff, but well, they knew me as a guitar player. So it took a while to work up my skill level until someone said, "Hey, let's have you play bass for me tonight."
Yeah,
And yeah, now
cool.
we're on about like 15 years. Uh,
Yeah. Well, I've seen you play. I mean, you play jazz, you play do you play some classical? I've
a
seen
little bit.
like a country band or something you're
Yeah,
playing, like a
I love old country. I love bluegrass. I love most music that's pre 1990.
okay.
I think 1990 was college. That's about the last era that I was really into. But anything in the 2000s, I'm out. But you go 70s, 60s, 50s, and before that, I'm all good.
That's cool. That's cool. Well, there is, of course, is a lot of good music since the 2000s, but
Yes, I'm
there's
just not aware of it.
the well, so you'll be teaching. You're coming all the way from California, so we're not hauling that giant bass around. So
Right.
you'll be
Thank
teaching
you.
you bass,
Yes.
and which is what 90% or more of our bass players are playing now. And we had talked about your classes. You have an intro to bass class, which
Mhm.
I'm assuming is pretty much as it's described.
As it
It's
sounds. Yeah.
for just complete
Yeah, let's
beginners.
let's get you holding it. Let's get you familiar with the first couple of strings, and then start the memorization process, a couple of play-alongs, just get you into there. And then when coming from ukulele, I mean the thickness of the strings is such a difference. So the
Yes,
tactile sensitivity is just something that you need to work through and get familiarized with.
sure. Well, and then the next step up, you talk about the one and five,
The root and the
the
fifth.
chord
Yeah.
tones, arpeggios.
Yeah,
Um,
you can play an entire gig in country and bluegrass and some jazz playing the root and the fifth.
Absolutely.
It's lots of jokes about it as well, but once you have that down, if you have well, chords are a root, a third, a fifth, the recipe for there. So a lot of times with the bass, you're playing the root and the fifth, and then all we have to do to outline a chord or play a chord is add that third. And so
Okay.
we get through the root and the fifth, and then for those who want to move on and start to outline a major or minor chord, then we can add that triad.
Sure. Sure. Well, and then, and here again, I'm like a incredibly hobbyist bass player. But what I found is that the first and the fifth, you can play those, and it's just so important to keep the steady beat
Yes,
in
you
playing
are the
bass,
keeper of the groove. Yeah.
Absolutely. Our bass player Steve says you're the one driving the bus, you
Yes.
know. So you can get away. I mean, you don't have to be John Entwistle or whatever and play every note in the world.
Mhm.
Just play a couple of the right notes and keep the beat.
Yeah, for those folks who have the fretless U bass, one of the things that was told to me is that you can play a wrong note if it's just a microtone off, or even if you miss completely. They said your time is indispensable.
Yep.
So the playing in time, because the frequency usually is so low, most of the time it gets lost in the mix, and people won't even hear that you fudged a note by a quarter step.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, bass,
keeping that time.
there's a lot of great bass players that do lead bass and that. What I've found a lot of
Yeah.
times with bass is it's the kind of thing that won't necessarily draw attention to itself,
Mhm.
but if you don't, if it's not there, boy, the
You know
whole,
it's missing.
you lose the whole song. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. You really do.
Yeah, as a bass player, I think the mentality you need to have is to, number one, serve the song and serve the band.
Right.
You should not be there to show off as a bass player per se, unless the song requires you to be the
Sure.
highlight. But
Sure.
yeah, for the
Sure.
most part, really, you are laying the foundation. You are the backbone. Everyone rests on you to
Absolutely.
for that. So
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and then so we're gonna then you move it up kind of into a little more intermediate level.
Yeah.
We talk about mapping out progressions
Mhm.
and connecting chords together, and then of course walking bass lines.
Yeah. So the cool thing is I mean, Western music is a lot of cliched patterns. And once you start to identify patterns, those create shapes on the bass. So if I see a C, A minor, F, G, everyone knows that as Stand By Me. It's just like, oh, that's a box pattern. And it's like,
Yep.
okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on and so on. Uh, a lot of the other patterns that you can see will all have specific shapes. But even before you get to that, because that requires knowing the chord progression, some of the Roman numeral stuff. But if you have a C and a D chord in progression, wait, there's a C sharp or a D flat in between them. That's your first way to connect something. And then people ask, well, how do I use scales? Well, moving from a G, how often are you playing a song in C? You go to a G chord and it goes back to the C chord. Oh, you use your scale to
Right.
walk
Right.
back to that C. So starting off the mentality of a walking bass line by first just connecting two chords. You don't need to walk the entire time, but you see, oh, there's a step here that I can take. Oh, there's a step here I can take. Oh, you mean I can take this path back to that chord? And then all of a sudden you are walking.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that I mean, I've just noticed that in songs that you pick the right spot to put that little walk in there,
Yeah,
leading into a chorus or whatever.
yeah,
Um, cool. Well, it sounds to me, I mean, here again, me not being a bass player, but being able to fake it a little bit. Um, I don't know. I think I'm going to have to just take all your classes.
Please do. You're more than welcome.
I
For
always say
those of you
that
who
every time.
if there's someone out there who is curious about the bass, yeah, just come on by, definitely. What it gives you, or those who are curious, maybe you're already playing in your uke group and you have 35 soprano ukes and no
Right,
bass, right? It
right.
sounds very kind of trebly. You can become, you get to play this role that no one else will play in your uke group, which is laying that foundation. And trust me, I mean, a lot of times at a uke jam, you will see the bass player walk up and hit that first note, and everyone's eyes light up and the smile
Yeah,
goes. It's just all of a sudden there's a foundation for everyone to lay on.
it makes
So
all the difference in the world in a youth group.
yeah, it's super fun to
Yep,
play.
yep. It just fills out the whole sound and helps keep everybody together.
Yeah,
It's so easy in a youth group to start strum, 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 and all of a sudden it's just taken off.
yeah. You don't get to
So
hide so much. You're laying the foundation and
right,
you're not necessarily seen, but you can't really
absolutely,
hide.
absolutely. But again, like you said, if you know the basics. You
I
don't
see
have
what
to
you did there.
be you don't have to be the fanciest player in the world.
Right.
Just, hit the right notes and keep the beat, and it
Yeah.
keeps everybody together.
Yeah. And you don't have to do anything fancy. You can sit on that root
Right.
and just play the root of the chord the entire time. And a lot of styles are just based on that.
Sure. How did
Yeah.
you get hooked up in the ukulele community?
Oh, that's a fun story. So I had a friend who was teaching guitar classes at UCLA, recreation classes, and he asked me to sub a couple of times, and I did, and I had to meet the supervisor of the department. And at one point, he brought me in. He goes, "Oh, thanks for subbing for Brian." And as we talked, I said, "Do you have a ukulele class?" I said, those are, fairly popular. And he thinks about it and goes, "No, I don't have one. Can you teach it?" I didn't even have an ukulele at the time. I think I had a baritone at the
Oh,
most.
okay.
So I ran out to my local music shop and I found an Ohana banjolele because I was doing the traditional jazz Dixieland stuff, banjolele can work on gigs. So I
Sure.
grabbed that off the wall and I started to learn. I only needed to learn enough to teach an intro class.
Right.
So I had like 3 weeks to do it. So I just kind of transferred my knowledge from guitar over to that. And that got me teaching ukulele at UCLA. Um, then at the LA Uke Fest later that year, I saw the Ohana booth and I went over and just introduced myself and said, "Hey, I picked one of your instruments off the wall. I gig with it. It feels great." And Lewis and Chris are just great people. I love Ohana
They
because
are,
they're
they're awesome people. They're wonderful.
small family run business
Yep.
and they treat their
Yep.
artists well. And so I've stuck with them. And
Yeah.
that's kind of that started everything.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, because I noticed, like I said, I had just met you at Reno, but it's like everybody knew, hey, Conrad, yeah. So I'm going, I gotta know
I've been
this
lurking
guy.
around a while.
But
Yeah.
while we're going to be happy to have you lurking around Midwest Uke Harmonica Camp,
Sneaking
that's
through the shadows.
July 11th through 13th in Toledo.
Great.
Toledo.
Yeah, looking
You ever
forward
been
to
to
it.
Toledo, Ohio before?
I have not. I was born in the Midwest, but I have
Oh, you
actually
were.
not been back. I was born in Chicago. My
Oh,
parents
okay.
moved to California when I was 4. I visited Indianapolis and Madison and Milwaukee in around 2000, 2001.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's the last time I've been to the Midwest. So it's been a good 20
Well,
years.
we'll get you back. You'll probably fly into Michigan and we'll haul you
Yep,
down to Ohio. And I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be great.
sounds
I
good.
think people are really going to like your approach. And we're going to have more and more bass players. Oh my gosh.
Oh no, what are we gonna do? Oh,
Well,
we have
we'll have
tricks
to,
on when there's more than
yeah.
one bass player. There's some fun stuff we can do too.
Oh yeah, that'd be
Yeah,
cool. That'd be cool. Well, great, Conrad. Well, it's awesome talking to you. I really
yeah.
look forward to seeing you in July. And
Likewise.
I'm sure everybody's going to have a wonderful time working on the bass.
Cool. Looking forward to it.
Take it easy.